And we're live recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis podcast. My name, if this is your first time, is Milan. And this podcast is primarily directed or meant for male audience willing to understand intersexual dynamics, human nature, and overall awareness of their being and existence. So it will be a highly complex content, but I will try to make subject matter as digestible as possible, so to say. So if this is your first time, welcome. If not, welcome back. I really enjoy doing this more and more as I progress and I receive support and criticism as well, which I always welcome, as long as you're, of course, interested in growth and actually help me by providing an honest feedback. So I genuinely appreciate it to all of you, and you know who you are. Thank you for your support. So today's going to be a very interesting subject or topic, because I'm going to address a celebrity issue. And the reason I'm going to do that is simply because I believe that celebrities naturally attract more attention. And by observing the behavior of the category of the people that we refer to as celebrities, which is nothing but of course, a name, a label, category, we can deduce many things and understand many things about human behavior from a wider audience and a wider range. And because also many people are involved in commenting, trying to understand the dynamics of this person, but essentially and fundamentally, the people you refer to as powerful or celebrities are essentially no different than you. And we share same nature, same mind. So it is essentially, I believe, important to understand the dynamics. And in this case, it's going to be the dynamics of the divorce between Sylvester Stallone and his now former or to be former wife. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, which is Flavin or Flavin. I'll go with Flavin, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. So why am I doing this? Why am I touching upon this kind of content? Because I believe it is quintessential for men to understand, first of all, protect themselves. And I'm not saying protect yourselves as in protect yourselves from women. I'm saying protect yourselves from predatory women and women who are going to ruin your lives. And of course, you won't be able to know that until the day comes when something drastic happens, such as a divorce or something. And of course, people will always say, yeah, you can get over it, you can live with it. And of course, the divorce or any tragedy in life is meant to be overcome and surmounted and lived through. But we are addressing a more serious issue here, which is consistency with a pattern. And understanding this pattern in female behavior, also male behavior, we are not exempted from that. And we also have a role to play in that. And there's a mutual accountability in relationships. But fundamentally, to understand what is going on and to have one's own opinion on what is going on, so that men that I work with, men that I coach and interact with who do want to improve their lives and relationships do understand, and so they can understand women better and what is going on and how to avoid these kinds of things. I always like to quote late David Hawkins, whom I highly suggest that you read. Books such as Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender and Power versus Force. I highly encourage you to read those masterpieces. He does bring what you might consider a religious element to the book by a constant emphasis to God. But if you are of kind of a more broader mind and understanding, you will see that it's has very little to do with actual religion, but it with genuine understanding of one's consciousness and source consciousness, whatnot. So without going too much into that, the quote from late David Hawkins is simply that you cannot create anything because that is a divine act. What you can do is you can act in accordance with the highest imaginable best outcome for you and the world that you see around yourself. Basically be the change you want to be in the world, as I believe Mahatma Gandhi said. So as David Hawkins said, like, if you act in accordance and if you embody the virtues and the qualities, not just virtues, all qualities of the person that you wish to become, that you and act in accordance with the world that you want to live in, then that is the best you can do. So the best you can do is to make the decisions and choices that are in accordance with your core values, which you have to have as a man. I cannot stress this enough. If you haven't understood your core values before doing anything else in life, please sit down with yourself and understand for yourself. Understand your process, understand who you are, understand your core values, be it truth, be it justice, be it equality, be it whatever. And for me, it is truth and it is love. And I do my absolute best to implement that in my work and in my every breathing breath. And it's very challenging, of course, because it would appear as conditioning to the mind, but it isn't, because it is an aspect of who you are that you're simply allowing to come forth. So in this content, and as I continue creating, you will also see me probably falter and be maybe emotional here and there, but please try to not focus on me. I'm just a messenger, but rather on the content. Why do I think that Sylvester Stallone is an important person to discuss this? So as I'm doing this, I'm going to record my screen as well. And I'm going to, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, which I suggest that you do, because I think you might have a much better understanding as I go through what is going on my computer, because I'm going to be sharing my screen as well, then you will see that, first of all, I address intersexual dynamics and male behavior. And you can see, I see a picture from, if I read this correctly, this is the 11th of March, or it could be 3rd of December, but I think since it's 2022, then it's the 3rd of March, or 11th of March rather. And you can see right away that, and this might sound judgmental, but guys, you know, and I'm speaking to men right now, in terms of intersexual dynamics, you know that women are looking for partners that can dominate them and that are taller, stronger, bigger than them. And that actually this can bring out the female submissiveness. And we're talking about, of course, genuine feminine women who understand their nature and who, of course, they're not inherently inferior to men. You who understand intersexual dynamic know that inferiority is not a personal quality. It is not something that devalues a woman. It is something that allows for a healthy nurturing of the relationship, and that actually enables the protector dynamic in the man, in the same way that, for example, a woman needs to feel that protector dynamic in the child, and she needs to treat the child a certain way, and child needs to behave a certain way for that dynamic to kick in. So basically, if children don't act like children, parents won't feel the need to protect them. And I think that you might recognize this in your own life as well, based on your relationship with your parents. Of course, this doesn't mean you need to be a needy bastard, but at the same time, if this can help you understand what the protector dynamic means, you will also understand that for men to be protective over their women, over the selected women, the women they choose, they need to feel that sense of inferiority, in the sense that that protector dynamic can kick in, and so that they are naturally wired to protecting that woman, not because she's weak, but because she's vulnerable. Because women, in accordance with their nature, they are and I'm sorry for using this word, I'm using it in a very broad sense, and please take it with a grain of salt, the incubators of the next generation. And I know women do not like associating with this, nor am I calling women incubators. I'm saying that in a practical sense, in a biologically practical sense, women are the ones who carry the next generation, which is why the protection and provision element by the male side is so important, which is why this case is so important, because in the Manosphere and the Red Pill talk, and on my podcast and on my content, we talk about we address statistics, and we see at which point do women leave marriage and at what point women break families. And I'm not using this as a judgment, I'm using this rather as a indicator of lack of personal accountability, because women keep being empowered to, when initiate divorce. So pay attention to the dynamic here. So when a woman traditionally leaves marriage, then she's an empowered queen. She made a good choice for herself. when a man leaves marriage, the probability of him being shamed is slightly higher. And that's a personal experience that might not be true, and I invite you to investigate it on your own. I always invite everyone who listens to this podcast to investigate everything that I say. Don't trust the word that I say. Take it as investigate it on your own, pretty much. So in this case, we have a woman who is, based on this picture, unless she's wearing heels, clearly taller than her man, which is an enormous red flag from the get-go, because when men choose taller partners, taller women, they are kind of not able to actually establish a sense of dominance in the relationship and establish that kind of a frame. Now, when I say dominance and when I say frame, I don't mean literal control of the woman. I don't mean that woman cannot make choices for herself or leave at any point that she wants. I'm referring to the frame that allows for an interdependency in the relationship and therefore the need to remain together. We are all independent, autonomous beings to a certain degree, but at a certain degree we also need each other as well. Now this woman, Flavin, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, initiated a divorce after 25 years of marriage, and she's accusing the actor of moving assets from marital funds. But at the same time, the Stallone said that I love my family, we're amicably and privately addressing the personal issues. Now the reason I already detect falsity here, and I'll go back to the beta aspect of Sylvester Stallone in just a second here, there's aspects of a beta male, is that you can already see paradox here and contradictions. That, for example, what Sylvester Stallone did, and I'm going to show you this if you're watching right now. Amidst all this, saying all this is true, that they are trying to do so amicably, you will also understand that is very difficult when you're trying to separate with someone, especially if you have children with someone. That is the percentage in which couples separate amicably is extremely high, is extremely low, because, and one, again, correlation, not causation. So when I say and give quote things, please note that it is not a sole reason for that. There is always a plethora of factors and a million factors that we're not able to fully distinct. One of the correlating factors and reasons of people not amicably separating on unfavorable terms is because of the elements of the emotions of such as hatred and resentment, out of also fear of abandonment, and also not being chosen. So if you have a family of 25 years and your daughters are 20, let me just see that again. I think their daughters are, yes. So Scarlett's 20, Sistine 24, Sophia 25. So these are three adult women. And when you have a family, then breaking that family is an existential threat, because in a biological sense and how we are wired, we know deep inside in our hindbrain that the separation of the biological parents of the children decrease the survivability of the children. And you can of course make the case that they are rich and millionaires, these people, and that they can provide for their children. But you have to understand that financial provisioning and material provisioning is only one of the plethora of aspects that are relevant to the child to thrive and survive. Another important case to make here is, and this I often mention in my work, is that women initiate 70% of the divorces, and that women are normally the one that initiate divorce knowing that will break the family. And in the world as it is today, again, observe this for yourselves, make your own conclusions, but we encourage this kind of behavior in women, and we do not encourage women to actually focus on the family. Now, the reason for this separation, the reason for this, or the trigger rather, it's not the reason, it's the trigger, because there's always a deeper issue. There's always something that's not being told. Never forget that. We as humans are wired to not speak the full truth. It's part of our adaptive and survival strategy, especially women. Women are covert in their mating and survival strategies. Men are overt, which means more direct. But it looks like the reason for this, and this is such a silly reason, is exactly this picture here. If you're watching me on YouTube, it is that after it's over a dog. So this couple divorced over a dog because Sylvester Stallone wanted to get a dog, and allegedly, so we don't know this for a fact. I'm just reading text from a screen, and I'm making story about it, but it doesn't have to be true. But I hope it gives you value. So he wanted to get a dog, and she objected, which again dictates lack of masculine frame within the family. Because if you're a man who has, and his net worth is $400 million, by the way. So if you're a man and you're the head of the family and you make the important decisions, and from what I read in one of the articles, he did it because he wanted to protect the family, which again, I don't know if it is true, but men can fall in this trap. And guys, please listen to this very mindfully. Men can fall easily into this white knight trap, or get too absorbed in this protector role and actually justify personal endeavors and behavior, so behavior that they want to do for themselves, and mask it, put it under the guise of protection or protectiveness. If, however, this is true, which, I mean, there's no reason for it not to be, so the guy just wanted to get a dog, and that's a problem, and then his wife divorces him, and of course that probably just triggered many issues that this couple had in their relationship. You can already tell, I mean, based on pictures, you don't need to be a scientist or a psychologist to see that. And if you look at this picture, this is again, I believe this is a pure manipulation from the woman's side, and this does not contribute to the amicability of their separation. This is the woman, the wife, who just took a picture with her 3 daughters and said, "These girls are my priority, nothing else matters, the 4 of us forever." And I believe this is also a form of triangulation that I also explored here, just to verify that I have good references. And triangulation is often used in family dynamics when there is a lack of communication or trust in one of the parties, so the 2 parties kind of contrive together, and they come together to either unite over isolating the third party, or basically trying to include them. But since this is a separation, I highly doubt this is the case. So anyway, you can see that 4 days after the breakup, or the announcement of I want to use the exact data here. So the announcement of the filing of the divorce, and once again, please pay attention to how the woman went to the press to tell the press and the public that she's filing for a divorce, which also stinks of manipulation and again, a tactic that is tailored to one's own security. And don't forget, women have the natural tendency to seek security. And if you, as a woman who is married to a guy whose net worth is $400 million, and I'm not sure if it's a prenuptial, if they signed a prenuptial agreement, I think he did, because he wanted to sign one with his previous marriage, I think, and she refused. I don't have the data set on that, but I will definitely provide that. And I think that, if I remember correctly, that his former wife didn't agree and then married him 2 years later, but I could be wrong. So you need to understand that if you look at this picture here, if you're watching me on YouTube, you will see that on one picture, Sylvester Stallone has the tattoo of his wife on his right shoulder. And then on his right shoulder, again, same place, 4 days after she announces the filing of a divorce, he covers it with a picture of the dog. So, and I think it's a dog, yeah. Image of his late dog and Rocky co-star Butkus. I hope I'm reading that correctly. So you can already see, you don't have to be a psychologist or a master interpreter of human behavior, that this is not about amicable separation of a couple, that there are clearly issues here that are not being communicated, and the obvious red flags that we can identify already in the relationship. So the first one being this highly, in my opinion, impulsive response to, and childish response by Sylvester Stallone's part to the separation, by the covering of the tattoo of his wife. And most important, not to comment, why the fuck would you tattoo the face of your wife or anyone else on your body, unless they are, deceased. That would make sense to keep them in a as a memory. But even that for me is, because I'm not into tattooing, I think it's I believe that people who are stuck in a certain moment in time are doing tattoos to remind themselves of that moment, to feel more alive and to feel more connected to reality through reliving that experience. But I personally don't condone tattooing. That's just my opinion. But as we can see here, who tattoos? It must have been, this is quite an average guy, according to my opinion. Yes, he's rich and famous, and I don't mean to shit talk Stallone, but it is quite fascinating to me how someone can do such a thing and then just cover it up with a picture of a dog 4 days after the divorce. And again, the behavior, the inconsistency in the behavior, and then the woman going to the press, telling public that she's filing for a divorce, and then she asks for the $50 million villa that she wants for herself, and all this is, and then using the daughters. For me, this is you have your own opinion. I'm just seeing this for what it is, according to my opinion, and this is pure manipulation, because I've seen women do this to get attention and validation, and to basically qualify as good mothers. Because if this woman is divorcing Stallone, then she doesn't see him as a valuable or valid mate. And I don't know the year difference between the two, but still, she looks youngish, maybe a few facelifts here and there. But I do not think that this is a solid strategy to optimize one's survival, but it is consistent with the female behavior that is exhibited in the conditions where there is a separation, and where women basically get wealth from men through either divorce or heritage. And please pay attention to one piece of information I'm going to share with you, is that, of course, not to in any way say something negative about women, but simply telling facts, that top 10 richest women in the world got their wealth through either marriage settlement, which is divorce, or heritage or inheritance. So you have to understand that in this world, as we built it and as we live in it today, it is men who have power and men who strive and thrive in power, because we're wired to be competitive. And you can see that women use different manipulation tactics to get power, because don't forget, women use covert tactics and men use overt tactics. But with the feminization of men, with the more encouragement of men to display more feminine traits, again, nothing wrong with that, but it can be pathological and dangerous, then men become more interested in looks and appearances rather than producing value and becoming men of value. And this is why, for example, this situation here where Stallone tattoos his arm 4 days after the announcement of the filing of the divorce is interesting. And I'm not making the case here that I'm using this as a cautionary tale for you guys who are out there seeing this, because you can already see that there's something not right when you look at a family. And there is, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I did study psychology, I did study medicine, and I just want this to be your own conclusion and whatnot. But when you look at this picture here, if you're watching me on YouTube, the Stallone family, you will see that something is clearly off. You know, the man is like, the Stallone is kind of hunched, kind of down. He does have his hands like this. The body language is there. Yes, there is a masculine presence in frame, but no one is touching him and no one is touching anyone. There is no kind of, there are two daughters that are kind of holding hands, and it's not even clear if they're doing that, but there is not much communication, contact in the family. And I mean, it's a ticking time bomb for as far as I can tell and as far as I'm concerned. And when it comes to the situations such as divorce, and when you say that you are doing amicable, that you want to separate amicably, again, don't trust what people say. Trust what people do. That is the main, if I can share a piece of wisdom with anyone, and if I can recommend people to do something in their life, it is to hold people accountable for their behavior. And when you go through a divorce, and when these things happen, and when there is already disparities, then the conflicts only branch, and they will keep branching indefinitely. And you need to understand that not addressing the core issue and the core problem is in itself a problem that will only keep branching, because you will keep implementing solutions without actually understanding the original problem. And that can genuinely take you down. It can take you out completely. Again, divorces are an enormous thing because there is a biological correlation to one's existence, to one's family. To those of you who have children, you must understand this, because you are biologically attuned to your children and them having the best possible conditions. But at the same time, if you reach the level of neuroticism and the level of, if you enter this mental space in which you believe that your partner, who happens to be the biological parent or co-parent of your children, then something is off there that needs to be fixed, and it's within you. And allegedly, what this woman said in one of the articles, Flavin, is that she felt no more love in the marriage or happiness. You need to understand one thing, that happiness is your personal responsibility. That if you don't take care of your own life, your own self, as Krishnamurti says, you need to be light unto yourself. And if you are not that, if you are not this source for yourself, then nothing outside of yourself will help you, and no one is coming to save you. Now, before I continue, I'm going to take a short break because I need to reset my camera, so I'll be right back. All right, I am back. So now, discussing the more juicy stuff that is not as spiritual, as enlightening. Now, why is Sylvester Stallone a beta? And for all of you watching my channel and who know that I often speak about alpha and beta dynamics in relationships, because again, why, and just an explanation and a clarification why, I'm going to write this down. Why do I speak about alpha and beta? And I'm going to clarify that very simply for you, very easily. Here's why. If you want to learn about evolutionary biology, one of the best sources I can give you is Robert Sapolsky from Stanford University. That guy, and his lectures are public, they're on YouTube, and they are available, and I'm going to link them. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm going to link them below. I'm going to link you the Sapolsky lectures. That guy is an evolutionary biologist, and I think a lot more than that, a university professor at Stanford University. The way he explains the human animal, us as humans, is outstandingly delicious to consume. His content will make you stand on your toes just watching and learning about human nature. So you need to understand one thing about humans. Humans are a very unique species because in the animal kingdom, you have two kinds of species. You have pair bonding species, and these are normally birds and certain mammals. I think wolves are pair bonding species, which means they mate for life. They choose a mate, and they remain together. And you have tournament species. Tournament species are exactly the species that utilize the dynamics of alpha and beta males. Now, in human societies, we have even lower categories than betas, and I will go into that in one of my following videos, and I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. This is a very interesting discussion and topic. Where are humans? Humans are in between. So humans are the combination of the two, which is why we cannot divorce ourselves from that. Why? Because we see in the ways we organize societies that since men have been the ones in charge of societies due to their natural tendency for power, that men clearly organize societies in hierarchies. This is exactly why, as you see the rise of feminism and feminist and gynocentric imperative and conditioning that has been present and around since the implementation of, since of course the arrival of birth control in 1965, things have been a bit different. That society has been changing more towards gynocentrism, more towards catering to women and women's gynocentric view of the world, which is more egalitarian. And we are not equal, men and women. We are different, And we, instead of focusing on utilizing those differences and living together as interdependent species, we are implementing solutions to problems we do not fully understand. So once again, if you want to understand the nature of the human species, at least one tip of the iceberg, go to Robert Sapolsky. Thank me later. And if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you, because the guy is funny, humorous, he explains it in a nice, fun way, a genuinely good teacher. So, moving on. Why is Stallone a beta? Well, first of all, choosing a wife that's taller than you. Now, I don't know if she's taller than him in without heels. He looks at her a bit up. Yes, she's next to him. She's taller. They are sitting, and she actually seems taller than him in the pictures too, and his daughters seem actually quite tall as well. So again, men who choose women that are taller than them do kind of lack a certain masculine aspect to themselves, because men genuinely tend to choose partners or women that are shorter, smaller than them. And women will say, yeah, because he wants to dominate them and he wants to control them. No, absolutely not. But that dynamic needs to exist for also the woman to feel safe. Because, and I see this a lot in feminist relationships, how feminists choose their partners. Because feminist women often choose men that are smaller than them or their size. And this is very important because that actually allows for less of a, how shall I say, avoiding the scenario in which a woman will have to defend herself because she naturally wouldn't. Even if you were to be with a man who is your size or a bit smaller, you will still not be able to defend yourself physically because the man is just stronger in so many aspects. And one of the proofs of this would be, I think, a UK first league female football team being beaten by 15-year-olds from some small football league. And there are just certain differences, biological and inherent differences that we have as men and women. Now, why would Sylvester Stallone choose a woman? And why is he also a beta? So he's a beta because of this thing here. And that is the tattoo. Because this, in a sense, represents love that lacks frame and lacks manifestation in real life. Because the woman clearly does not respect the man. If she's able to leave the marriage, and also on amicable terms, quote unquote, and still behave in such a way that she utilizes, in my opinion, weaponizes daughters against this man to gain more attention, and also gain, not to mention that she used her popularity and went public with the divorce. So women who respect their men don't do this. Women who respect their men try to come together because they are naturally nurturing and caring and loving, and they have a strong community. So women that are feminine have the natural affinity to take care of their immediate environment, not in a manipulative sense, which kind of seems to be the case here, because if I'm looking at the picture of Flavin and her 3 daughters, and I see that their look is lifeless. I apologize for the judgment. I'm doing my best not to project, but when I look at this picture of them holding each other, it seems so artificial and posed. And you just need to look deep into their eyes and see how lifeless they are. And again, this is a proof for you guys that wealth is not the solution, clearly, to marital happiness. Because if we think it is, we thrive towards money, we try to build money and wealth, but in reality, you can see that this is not the case, because you can see these 4 women, 3 of them product of a marriage, and they don't seem happy and fulfilled either. They have everything I believe that they could have dreamt of. But again, you have a woman who decides to divorce a very powerful man, and she says, opposite to doing, don't forget, you mind what women do versus what they say. And if you see the contradictions between the two, trust what women do. Always. So you can see the picture here and have your own opinion. Does this look normal to you? And I don't mean normal as in there is a norm as to how things should look like. Should. Have your own opinion and understand and see for yourselves whether this is authentic or not. Because a woman who respects her man, back to being respected, a man would respect a strong and powerful presence, an alpha, right? And an ideal man for the woman. And women, please, if there are women watching this, please understand this. You want a man who has both alpha and beta traits and qualities. An alpha male is strong, dominant, secure, confident, and he is competitive and he is outgoing and attractive. That's the guy you want to fuck constantly, respectfully. But we all know it. And beta aspect of a male is parental investment and provisioning, which is why many modern women today do not focus on attractive men as much, because attractive men can be, players and whatnot. But they focus more on men who can give them security, because they're getting older, because we are pushing, since the sexual revolution, the age in which women are marrying and having children has moved significantly. I think up to between 10 and 15 years of difference between the 1965 and to where we are now, 50 years later, 55 years later, or even 57, if my math is on point. So a lot of things have changed in the meantime, but still you have this dynamic that is present here that clearly indicates that there is a disparity in behavior and what is being said. Now, please observe this for yourselves, because this channel is about protecting men while trying to approach things objectively in the best way possible, deducing things. Because when I saw Stallone, when I was a kid, I would think, wow, Stallone, what a guy, what a muscular. Because I always saw Schwarzenegger and Stallone as two kind of rivals and muscular macho guys. But then you see how they behave, and you see how they handle life and the situations, and you see that these are just mortals like you and me, and guys who clearly have issues that they're not resolving, or are resolving in a very childish way. Because I understand if the guy decides to tattoo his arm to cover his wife, but I don't know, I would just remove it overall, or never tattoo it to begin with. That's not a display of love. That's a beta trait, that kind of display of love. Because you need to understand, love is a choice. Love is not something that you go, oh, she's the one. There is no the one, by the way. There is the woman who chooses you, and you who choose the woman, and that is the choice you make daily. And that still doesn't guarantee anything, clearly, because women have nowadays have the privilege to walk away with zero consequences, and men can do nothing about it. And I'm not implying that men should punish women in any way, but hold them accountable. And accountability is actually maintaining the family structure, is focusing on the family, is trying to come together and understand what is the best possible outcome for all of us, not just me, all of us. Because if, again, women initiate 70% of divorces, and the main precipitator to divorces is the increase in financial, in revenue, in income in women, and also if women marry rich men, that they could divorce easily and get away with their money. So if you belong to one of those categories, please be mindful and careful. Sign the prenuptial agreement if you want to protect your resources and money. Choose women that show genuine respect and value you for who you are, and this is going to be evident, and you will not be able to mask or hide this. And the reason celebrities are a good example of that is because you can literally see photos, and you can tell based on their behavior whether they are authentic or not. And things are usually very, very easy to see if you are looking close enough. So have your own judgment, have your own opinion on also why Stallone would be a beta, even though he is an A-list, same as Will Smith. Will Smith is considered an A-list beta male because Jada Pinkett Smith basically manipulated the living shit out of him, and you can still see the consequences of that to the point where we are actually discussing, and I'm sorry to say this, and I don't wish to happen ever, but we're basically discussing at this point whether Will Smith is going to commit suicide or not. Because when you do not have that masculine frame and self-respect, women won't respect you. Women will abandon you and leave you. And you expecting that it's going to be otherwise is actually perpetuating your own suffering even more. Because if you do not have the frame that a woman walks into and feels safe and secure, she will fulfill her hypergamous nature and seek that externally constantly. So again, the paradox in that is the more women get, the more they will want, which is why the vetting process is so important, why it is important for you to have a frame and to conduct yourself in a certain sense where you will not allow that kind of behavior based on nothing but respecting yourself and your boundaries as a man. And if you do that and you're still shamed and guilt-tripped for doing that, then you are surrounding yourself with wrong women. Identify your core values, see what they are, create a strong masculine frame into which women will want to walk in voluntarily. Hold that frame. So not too much resistance, but you hold that frame through action, not through speaking, through action. Don't allow women to convince you that talking about your emotions is good. That's how women get security. Women will ask you tons of questions and also shit test you to make sure that you are a good investment and choice. And the more you give away verbally, the more you are condemning yourself, because you will not receive that validation for speaking about your boundaries. You will receive the validation and respect of women and fellow men, believe me, if you enforce those boundaries. Not force, enforce the boundaries. And you will see for yourself how you can avoid a situation such as this one where, your wife will go. It happened to me. It happened in my previous relationship when I wanted to make peace, and actually when I prioritized the needs of both of us, and when I wanted to say, hey, this is not healthy. Can we? And I offered 3 options. Can we go to a therapist? Can we record a conversation? Or can we have a mutual friend come so we can meet and talk? No, none of those. So there are women who are literally not interested in that because they have either been lying and manipulating from the very beginning, or they are simply not interested in that. You don't try to understand women, because you won't. So if you learn how to play the game with women, play respectfully, play dirty. If you're being played, you owe nothing to people who betray you. You owe nothing to people who want to manipulate you and use you. But be as loving and caring as possible, because you never know at the end of the day what's going to change and if people are going to wake up and realize their own mistakes. Most of them don't. Most of them never do. But you can, and especially if you're a guy, and if you surround yourself with the right kind of men who give you constant feedback, who validate and hear you and give you, tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, change this, change that, try this. Don't be a beta simp. Build yourself up, build value, create something of worth, inspire other men to do the same. If you know a man who is struggling in relationships, who needs someone to talk to, who needs some counseling or advice, send him here. I still take coaching calls and advice. So good luck. This episode has been as brief as I could make it. I didn't go into too much substance of it because I want you to have your own opinions. I don't want to affect or influence your opinions. But I hope you got something from it. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I would like to thank everyone who has subscribed so far. And if you're watching this, please subscribe to this channel. And thank you everyone who has showed immense support towards this channel, and owing to whom I really am keeping forward. Thankful and grateful that you're still watching this. And I will continue doing so. So, see you. Bye.